Welcome to another episode of the Wholesale Elite Podcast. I am Isham and I am joined by my main man, Mr. Tanner Santucci. How are you, sir?
I'm great. Let's get it going.
Yes, let's get it going. So guys, welcome to 2023. If you're listening to this, it is definitely 2023 because the new year has happened. And we wanted to take this opportunity just to kind of do a year in review. Just some of our key takeaways from last year, some of the things that we're looking forward to for the coming year, for this new year. So no guest today. It's going to be a special episode, fairly quick. And it's nice because I can just look into the camera and I don't have to look down at the screen or my notes. But Tanner, man, I want to kick it over to you and just kind of get, some of the key things that you feel you learned from last year in your real estate business.
Yeah, man. Well, it was a long year, but it's by far my favorite year that I've lived. So that's the good thing. It was exciting, a lot of learning. Last year was my first year in real estate, full-time at least. So a lot of obstacles, a lot of growing pains, but a lot of wins, thankfully. The biggest takeaways is, I think over the course of 2022, it became not so much. I grew in a way that it wasn't so much be Mr. Nice Guy. The business taught me to be more assertive, right, to be more aggressive. Right. And I think, speaking with other successful people in real estate or even just entrepreneurs, I think that's something they learn over time, because this business alone has changed not only how I look at everything, but also my own mindset, my own growth. It's completely changed pretty much the person I am. It's kind of weird. So, I go ahead.
I was just saying that makes sense. I get it.
Yeah. And so the biggest thing, I literally heard a quote yesterday, and it was just basically, be a lion, right? Be the man in your market, or be the man that, if you want to be an entrepreneur, don't let anyone outwork you. And I grew such a work ethic over the course of, this past year, to where now I don't even I would used to look at the clock and be like, man, I worked for 8 hours. Wow. What a day. Now it's like, I don't even look at the clock. It's just like, I just want to work until my eyes hurt. Now that's a good or bad thing.
You're like, I'm running out of time.
Yeah, exactly. Now I feel like there's not enough time in the day to do everything that's needed. So I don't know. There's a lot to take away from 2022. And like I said, one of the biggest things is obviously meeting you, because it ultimately led to a partnership, and it ultimately led to this podcast. And so there's a lot to be thankful for. There's a lot to be grateful for. And I'm just excited to see what 2023 has to offer, and continue to grow and continue to grow a company together.
Now, you said in the beginning there were some challenges as well. What were some of those?
Oh man, one, getting out of the mindset of I want to make all the money for myself, and not that I really came into the business like that. I was always open to knowing that it takes more than just myself to actually scale, but over the course of the year, that was one of the biggest things I learned. Like, now I could give two shits about how much I make on a check, as long as, there's a relationship that comes out of that. Now, whether it's with the title company, a seller, buyer, whoever, that was one of the biggest things. So the challenges for me early in the year were really not only opening up my mind to working with others in that case, and being okay with not making the $20,000 check, but making the $10,000 check, right, but also knowing how to essentially vet the people that you work with, and knowing how important it is to understand, just because someone is willing to work with you doesn't make them someone that you should work with. Or, sure. And I know it's hard to understand for when you're first into the business, because so many people are so desperate for help. And so desperate's maybe the wrong word, but they cling on to people that attach to them in this business. And that's how I was early on in my real estate career, because it's like, you're looking for guidance, you're looking for a way, you're looking for your way.
Yeah, somebody, anybody.
Yeah, anybody. Throw me something, throw me a bone, throw me anything, I'll chase after it, right? And so that was one of the challenges. It was because I found myself wanting to work with people I should have had no business working with, and almost forcing a relationship, whether it was to get a deal done or whether it was whatever it may have been, almost forcing myself to try to work with that person, even though maybe my values or maybe how I like to do business did not, it was completely opposite of maybe how someone else did. And I found myself finding a lot more headaches and a lot more issues along the way, rather than being firm in my ground and being like, hey, here's my values. Here's how I like to do business. If you're not okay with that, then, we can't do business together, no matter what the paycheck is.
Sure. Yeah.
And the last thing I'll say is I over the course of the year, which you know this, I learned to stop saying yes to everything because I was a yes man. And that was extremely hard for me. And again, a lot of people that listen to this podcast understand when you're new and especially into the wholesale real estate industry, you get shiny object syndrome, multifamily, single family, this, that, and you want to say yes to everything. And like for me, I wanted to say yes, not because I saw it as an opportunity to learn, because right. I didn't come into the business with a mentor. I had almost no background in real estate essentially. So I just only saw saying yes as an opportunity to learn. But over the course of the year, I learned that that's not always the best case scenario, or that's maybe not always the best choice, is to say yes to something, even though there may be a light at the end of the tunnel. That light might be actually very far away and you just see it very dimly. But if you say no, there's still maybe a door there to open up other opportunities. And that was the biggest takeaway for me was, actually saying no opened up other doors that if I would have said yes to a certain situation, I would have never been able to find those other doors. So that was definitely the biggest thing that I've learned through the course of 2022. But before I say anything else, let me ask you, Mr. Isham, what was your takeaways of 2022?
Man, so 2022 was my first year. It was my birthing, into this profession. But it's something I've been wanting to do for a long time, right? So I got all these books behind me, and I read Rich Dad Poor Dad a long time ago. And I shared this in my initial interview with you when we started the podcast, but I read that book and I just knew I wanted to get into real estate investing. I felt it was in my blood. It wasn't like, oh, that's a great idea. It's like, aha, it's like someone uncovered my passion that I didn't even really know I had. Right. But then it was like, how do I get it? How do I get all the money to start this real estate venture that I wanted to? So I went years and years and years developing the skills and the relationships and everything, not knowing that all of that practice over the last 10 to 15 years would bring me to this point of this year. So I have almost been like a ship without a rudder for the last 10 years in my professional career, my working life, where I'm not money motivated, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate. I'm not money motivated, more cause motivated. And so I like to find stuff that I like doing, and hopefully it pays me enough to, fund a little bit of my lifestyle along the way. And so I'd always done that up to this point, right? I even got into entrepreneurship and started my own little things and started, subcontracting and working with other people. But I haven't been an employee for a number of years now, 6-7 years. And so 2022 started off with me wanting to start a medical marketing agency of all things. And so I was ringing in the new year, ready to start a medical marketing agency. And then I saw a TikTok video that my neighbor down the street shared of Paul McComas, and he was talking about wholesaling houses. And I was just blown away when I learned about that. And so I became obsessed. I mean, obsessed. And I started, one of the first people that I listened to was Max Maxwell. And he was talking about obsession and how you want to become obsessed in this business. And I was like, well, that's good, because I am. Like, I can't stop thinking about it. And look, guys, if you're not there, that doesn't mean anything. If you're not obsessed right now about this, I don't want that to sound discouraging, like, oh crap, I'm not obsessed, so I don't think I can, I don't think I'm going to be successful in this. Your obsession grows. You can learn to become obsessed about something. I don't know if that's a requirement. I think it is for ultimate success. But I became obsessed. And so I started watching everything. I started listening to everything. My reticular activating system switch was on. So I started seeing all this real estate stuff where I wasn't seeing it before. So this year was a very, very pivotal turn point for me. I think because of all that practice and all that stuff that I had, I was able to get some quick success in the beginning. But I'll warn you, like for all those people that haven't done their first deal yet and you're months and months in, maybe a year in or whatever, my quick success was not good for me. It really wasn't, because it helped me financially get that belief check and, be able to invest into the mentorship with Astro that I am, or that I'm in now and will be for life. But it wasn't good because it taught me that this is easy. I thought it was easy. I really did. And so I went from from deal 1 to deal 2 was about a 4.5 month window. And that's something that I don't tell a lot of people. It's not that I'm ashamed of that or anything, but it just doesn't get brought up in conversation. But everyone loves to talk about their first deal. My first deal came quick. My second deal took a while, and the second deal was pretty ugly. But some awesome things came out of that. My second deal was actually when I met Tanner. And so that's, I was shopping the deal and I met you and you were helping me dispo the thing. And then we connected, and so I want to say, look, guys, one of my key takeaways from 2022, is just not, I don't want to say I know what it takes because that's ignorance. It really is. But what I do know is, if you have the right mindset and you surround yourself with the right people, your success is inevitable. I mean, it is.
Absolutely.
And those are strong words. But it's simple. It's 2 things, maybe 3 things. You want to put some action in there as well, but have the right mindset and surround yourself with the right people. If you do those 2 things, the action will come because you won't be able to stay in those associations and not be a performer. You're almost forced into action, and you'll be inspired in action and pushed, instead of pulled. And so those were massive takeaways for me. Just realizing the power of that. And in this profession, that's everything. Your mindset and your relationships are huge. And so as I got into the deals, as we closed more and more deals, I started to realize, something that now became one of our company sayings is it's never about the deal. It's about the relationship, because deals come and go. Deals can go away real quickly because of a number of things. But if you focused on building the right relationships, it's great because you don't burn any bridges. You don't lose the relationships, which cause more deals to come. And so that's probably a really long answer to your question of what was my takeaway. And it may not seem so clear. I mean, in my head, it sounds pretty clear. But yeah, those are my takeaways. Is you need to have the right mindset and you need to surround yourself with the right people. So that's what I'm going to continue doing into this year, 2023. In Astro, we have the benefit. This course is phenomenal. I mean, it's phenomenal. But the first week of the course is a mindset module. And I mean, that module, ask anyone who's gone through it and is a part of Astro flipping mentorship, that module alone was worth the price of admission. And the fact that you get to stay with with the mentorship for life, it's not like you pay that, for a year. That week 1 was powerful. And so for this year, I want to go back through that week 1 again and just sharpen my mindset even more. So I'm looking forward to that. I don't know if you're going to ask me about challenges or not. There are definitely some of those, but yeah, those are my takeaways.
Well, what were your challenges? Speaking of that, I mean, what was one of the hardest lessons you've had to go through in 2022?
Mindset related, I'd say a lot of ego stuff. Not that I had a big ego, but I really care about what other people think about me. That's a big thing for me. And that's one of the things that I learned through the week 1 of the personal development that we did in the course. just really spending a lot of time and deep diving into that. Why am I so affected by what I think other people think about me and whatnot? And even at my age, I'm 42 right now, and the older you get, the less you care about what other people think about you. But even at this age, there's still some of that there. And so that's been a big challenge, because I am the kind of person who I don't want to make a move unless I'm pretty sure of something. And there's a lot of uncertainty in what other people think about you, because you can't control that. So that causes uncertainty, which can cause anxiety. And so one of my biggest challenges was, okay, if I do this, what are people going to think? If I start a podcast, what are people going to think? If I cancel a deal, what are people going to think? If I promise all these people that I'm trying to help that, hey, just call me, and they do call me and I can't help them because now I'm pretty busy, what are they going to think? So the what are they going to think was a big challenge that I faced in 2022. However, the silver lining around that was that because I stayed active and because I stayed committed to my goal of growing in this real estate business, what other people thought of me mattered less and less. So much so to the point now to where I don't want to say I don't care what other people think about me. And I think that if people really say that, I think those people are full of shit. I think to some degree, most people should care, unless you're a psychopath, of what other people think about you. You may just not be affected by it, or you may not let it affect you. But I think to some degree, people care, else you would just walk around butt naked if you wanted to. You know what I mean? Like there's some degree where you really do, if you're being honest, care what people think about you. But I'm learning this year to not let that hold me back. I loved launching this podcast, was a big one. I bought this cool little mic and this podcast setup 7 years ago with the intention of starting a podcast, and never did. And here we are. And so then I was worried, what are people going to say? What if people don't get value? And then as we were like, what, screw it, let's just go for it. And I had an accountability partner. I had a partner who, even though like I couldn't back out because I I mentioned it to him, he said, yeah, let's do it. And so, but then the mistakes came, I'm sure you guys can go back into previous episodes and see that, there's blurriness. I may have clicked the wrong button. I may have said something wrong or stuttered. Going back and listening through, some of the previous podcasts, I hear all my ums. I hear all this stuff that I can get caught up in my head with. But because I'm more focused on the purpose of what we're doing, as far as the podcast, as far as our real estate business, my focus is on the purpose. I'm not really caught up anymore in how we're getting there or what the process looks like. I'm just so focused on the end goal, on the purpose of why we're doing this, that I know the process is going to be ugly. And I'm learning to get comfortable with that. So I would say that was my biggest challenge in 2022, is just kind of overcoming that. What are people going to think?
Well, I think you hit a few things like squarely on the head. And one of that being just what you said right there, which was you're focused more on the purpose than the process. And I think, as that correlates to the podcast, well, I mean, that can correlate to a lot of people's business. So they get caught up in I need to have this ready, I need to have that ready. And to piggyback off of that idea or that statement of yours is, getting into the business for me too, I don't want to say an overthinker, which I'll say I was, but I was overly analytical. I was worried about contracts. I was worried about this, that. And then as the year went on, and as I'm doing more deals, and as I'm just talking to people, you realize, wait, it's serious, but it's not that serious. So it was almost like as you go, it's almost like a weight that's lifted off your shoulders, essentially.
Right.
You can understand that there's people in the space of real estate that will help you along the way, whether it's a mistake, whether it's a contract mistake. Like most people don't know, like a contract that you send to title company is just instructions. If there's a problem with the contract, again, most people don't know that. Title will let you know, and then you can go ahead and fix it, right? And I was so worried, like, oh, here's an agreement, here's a contract. There's no changing. There's no going back.
I could screw something up and they could sue me. And
like, really, in reality, it's like that's one of the things. Like title company it's just instructions. That's all it is. So if something needs to be changed, and then the other thing you had mentioned was obsession. You may not be obsessed at first, but then over time you become obsessed. And I look at how I look at this business is you hit it right on the head again for me personally, because, you know, it starts with lust, essentially. You get enamored, you see the YouTube videos, you see the ads that pop up, make 10K in 10 days with no money, all this kind of stuff. And you get enamored by it. And that's what pulls you in, right? That's where the lust is. You get so excited about making so much money, hundreds of thousands of dollars in 1 month, like, you know, some of these ads say, in which is 100% it's doable. But then, sure, you know, you're lost in that, just like, you know, normal lust, you just get caught up in that whole feeling. And then when that kind of dies down because you start feeling stuck, you kind of start feeling overwhelmed. That's when the obsession for me really like kicked in. And I think that's what, if you really see the value and you really see the opportunity, especially in wholesale real estate, that's when the obsession becomes, that's when it starts for me again. That's when it kicked in. It was like, oh shit, this is real. Because I would listen to podcasts with people. I would listen, and, you know, no offense to some of these people on podcasts and stuff, and some people may think this about me, but there's just some people that you're like, if they can do it, I can do it.
For sure.
And take that however you want, but like literally that's how it is. And so I
think that's how I was with Max Maxwell. I literally was
exactly
that way. Like, I heard his story and I knew he was military like me. I knew he came from a somewhat not a broken home, but, you know, divorced parents, didn't have a lot of money. Didn't seem like super business savvy or street smart. Matter of fact, I remember looking down on him thinking that this guy's a carbon copy of Gary Vee. Cause I had followed Gary Vee for years and I kind of knew his thing. And with Max, I'm like, he's doing everything Gary Vee's doing, like even down to his signature, like everything's Gary Vee. But you look at Max now, Max is doing development deals in Dubai. Yeah. You know, so screw what I thought about him. He stayed focused. He became obsessed, and he worked his ass off. And now he's, you know, doing some incredible things. So you're so right.
And I think the obsession, like I said, it just comes over time. I think once you get into the fire, especially in this business, when you see again how much opportunity there is, it's hard for someone to spew some water on you, right? Yeah. To put out that fire, because it's burning so bad that, you know. And then again, being in a community like Astro, you're surrounded by so many people that are all craving the same thing. And I think that was another issue I had personally, that I could say is a takeaway from 2022 is find a group of people. Whether it's Astro, whether it doesn't even have to be a mentorship, it can just be people in your community, but find people that have that same desire as you do. If you don't want to be a 9-to-5, if you don't want to do this, if you know what I mean? Like, if you want to go out and hustle and create new opportunity, create that financial freedom, create that time freedom that most people crave, but you don't know where to start, go find people that you can surround yourself with that ultimately push you. Because at the end of the day, as humans, we're always looking up to someone, right? There's always someone, either whether it's 1 step, whether it's 100 steps, right? You're always kind of looking up to someone saying, how do I get to where they're at? That's where I want to be. But guess what? Those people that you're looking up to have someone they're looking up to. So there's always a level up. So that's one of the things that I've really learned is, like, I'll look at people that are more successful than me, but I just look at it as a tool to push myself to be better. I don't look at it as an end goal. I just look at it like, I want to get there. And then once I get to there, it's on to the next. Because I just understand that everyone has someone they look up to. So, you know, Elon Musk has someone he looks up to, and people look at him as one of the most successful people. So I think it's important to be obsessed for sure.
Yeah, dude. And you got to be bad before you're good at
absolutely
almost anything. Almost anything, from talking to walking to riding your bike to anything you've ever done, school, learning math, learning certain subjects, speaking another language, anything you've ever done, you were bad at it at first. This isn't going to be any different. You're not going to be able to study and learn all this stuff about real estate and then jump in and be good. It's not going to happen. You're going to be bad for a while. So it's okay. Just be okay with being bad, knowing that the end result is you're going to be good. You know, end result is, and the funny thing is no one remembers the bad stuff. You don't remember when you fell, you know, when you're learning to walk. You know, you've surpassed that so far now that no one's going to remember that. This episode, you know, when we're recording this 2 years from now, we'll be so much better than we are now. And this thing may get like 100 views, whereas 2 years from now, you know, we may be getting hundreds of thousands of views. Who knows? They're not going to go back and watch this. And if they do that, that's great, because you can go back and see the start, and it's kind of cool. You can just like going back to I don't know, Rogan or any one of the
Bigger
podcasts.
pockets even.
Yeah. And seeing when they started, how bad
Yeah.
they were. You don't do that now. No one goes all the way back to Bigger Pockets years ago, but you could, and you could see how bad they were. So just, have some comfort in knowing it's okay to be bad first. Tanner, let me ask you this. Okay. So 2023 is here. What are, what's a thing or two that you're excited about, and what's something that you're concerned about?
Well, we'll start with the bad before we get to the good, I guess. Concerned is, I mean, the easy one could be the market. No one really knows where it's going. And for us, that's kind of a fear, because that ultimately affects how we make money, essentially, from the people that, pay us. So that's one of them. Fear is, or not really fear, but one thing I would be worried about is the unknown, especially with the pivot in our business. There's a lot of unknown, and not uncertainty, but unknown. So I feel certain on the direction we're going, but there's still clouds in the way to where it's like, okay, I know the vision, I know my goal, I know the purpose, I know where we want our company to go, but we haven't figured out exactly the way to get there, essentially. And so that's one of the uncertain things, is still figuring that out, still growing the team, still figuring out how to structure the business. I mean, there's a lot, but again, it's not uncertainty, which people hopefully will understand that, and know the difference between the unknown and the uncertainty. So, really growing the business and figuring out the best way to do that, to be honest with you. That's one of my biggest things, and make sure we're doing it right. And again, like you said, you have to be bad before you can be good at everything. And so I know there's going to be mess ups. I already, that's why if a deal falls through now and stuff, like, it doesn't kill me, right? Because you have that expectation, and not an expectation that you're expecting stuff to fall through, because you shouldn't have that expectation, because you should be doing everything you can to make it happen. But you have to have that in the back of your head. So yeah, that's probably my biggest concern, is just learning how to grow the company in the right way. Minimizing mistakes, not eliminating, but minimizing mistakes. So, but looking forward to 2023, I can almost be a hypocrite and say those same things is what I'm excited about. Is learning how to do that stuff, and learning and almost getting excited to make mistakes, because I know from this past year, when you make a mistake, all it is a learning lesson. And then guess what? You can just add that into the piggy bank, and penny after penny after penny, it just adds up. And now you have $100 of pennies, because you made so many mistakes and you keep falling backwards. So that's one of the things that excites me the most, is everything that I said I was worried about is almost what I'm excited about. So hopefully, again, people will understand that concept, but there's a lot. How can you not be excited? Right. There's so much to be excited about. And especially, again, with the pivot we've made, I'm jacked, because I know me and you have talked about the end goal of the company, and the legacy we want to build. Right. And I know that, and we're both on the same page, knowing that the direction we're going is the way to get to where we want to be. And so I have nothing but excitement, nothing but energy, and I'm super stoked to see if it's even remotely close to doubling what 2023 was, I would lose my mind. So I'm pumped.
For sure.
What about you though? Let me ask you this: what's your worries or concerns, and then what are you excited about in 2023?
Well, I like that you said, it's funny, because truthfully, the things that I'm worried about are pretty much, the things that I'm also excited about. And a mentor of mine, his name is Jeff Olson. He would always say, your biggest strengths are usually your biggest weaknesses as well. And it's so true. My biggest strengths for me is I'm very high EQ, very emotionally attached to things. It's a big strength of mine. I'm able to form relationships really easily. I'm able to kind of charismatically relate to people really easily. But that's also one of my biggest weaknesses, is I'm so emotionally attached to things. And so if they don't work out or whatever, it's tough, So as far as, the year and what I'm concerned about and what I'm excited about, it's the same damn thing, dude. I will say this, for me, it's one thing. It's really not multiple. And Tanner, he alluded a couple times to the pivot in our business, and I'll just tell you guys kind of what we're doing. We haven't really gone public with this. And what's that?
I said I teed it up for you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. We haven't gone public with this, and we didn't discuss, hey, we should let the cat out of the bag today, but I don't see why not. one of the things that I always try and do, especially, you know, with this being my, I don't know, fifth business or something like that. Not that that's impressive, but I've learned a lot, you know, through starting these businesses and failing a lot. I've learned that it's nice to kind of begin with the end in mind. You know, even though you may not know what the end is, it's nice to begin with the end in mind, not necessarily in sight. And so the end for me, when I learned about Rich Dad Poor Dad, I grew up in Fort Walton Beach, Florida. For those of you who know that area, there's Fort Walton Beach, Florida, and there's Destin, right? And it's divided by water. And it's pretty much, consider the water as railroad tracks. And so there's the good side of the railroad tracks, which is Destin, and there's the maybe not so good side, which is the Fort Walton area. I grew up in Fort Walton. And so anytime we would go visit Destin, we felt like a fish out of water. Like we didn't belong. Like, this is such a nice area. And like, my parents are broke and we can never afford a house like this. But as a kid, I could envision this, like, man, how nice would it be to live in this lifestyle? And it just smells better over here in this part of the city. And so I became infatuated with not necessarily wealth, but just achievement and being able to acquire these things and doing what it took to be able to live in a house like this or to have a business like this. My mindset, you know, both my parents in the military, they didn't have any sort of an entrepreneur's mindset, but I wanted that, right? And so back to kind of what I'm fearful of versus what I'm excited about and our pivot in this business. When I was there in like looking around in Destin, I remember, I'll tell a quick story. When I got out of the Air Force, I started working at Starbucks back in the day. And Starbucks at the time, people would come in and it actually took the barista time to make their drinks. We didn't just hit a button. We actually had to make the shots. And there were these guys, I was working in Destin because of course if you're living in Fort Walton, you work in Destin because that's where the money is. But there are these guys that came in and they were real estate guys. And I knew that through conversing with them. One time they were gone for like a couple weeks and they came back. I'm like, where you guys been? They're like, we're in Costa Rica. I'm like, oh man, that sounds awesome. And this one guy was like, yeah, it's great. You know, I'm like, yo, what are you guys doing in Costa Rica? And he's like, we're doing a development out there. I was like, a development? What's that? He's like, we're building a multifamily. They were building a big, basically kind of like an apartment complex / condo kind of deal. And I was like, man, that's exciting. And for some reason that planted this seed in my head that, okay, I've been enthralled with real estate for a long time. And then seeing all the shiny stuff being from Fort Walton, coming to Destin, seeing all these nice houses. I'm like, these guys live in Destin, obviously, because they're here at Starbucks all the time. These guys are flying to Costa Rica and they're doing real estate stuff. I want to get into development. So from day one, my goal has always been to get into real estate investing so that eventually I can get into development, commercial and residential. I didn't know, what the difference was at the time, but I loved the idea of development. I remember driving by and seeing these big construction projects and just wondering, I wonder how that's being put on, like who starts the process to this? How do they acquire the land? How do they, just all the questions. I would think about this where I feel like most people just drive by and look at it like, oh, they're building an Applebee's. Like I would literally just break it down in my head. Like what's happening? Like, this is interesting. So from the beginning, my goal has always been to get into development and, commercial and residential development. And so when I got into wholesaling real estate, I'm in the game now. I made $10K in my first check, closed a few deals, after that, closed a few more, wrapping up the end of the year, and I'm in the game. And then I learned about land. I learned about wholesaling land, right? I heard about land a while back, but it just seemed boring. It wasn't as sexy as real estate. And, some people said, hey, it's easier on the land side. You can make just as much money. You don't have to deal with pain in the ass sellers and, people aren't emotionally attached to land. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. And then I meet Tanner and Tanner connects with this guy who's doing land. And so I'm like, all right, let's look into this. Next thing I know, like this guy was brand new and he's already done 6 figures, right? Just doing land deals. So I'm like, I got my attention. Like, how is this so profitable? So the more we dug into land, the more we realized, look, land acquiring land the way we were wanting to actually fits better into our end goal than wholesaling properties do. And I may be ignorant. Jamil, you're probably listening or watching this and laughing your ass off right now. But to me, in my head, it made sense. It made sense to align myself more with the developer than with a fix and flipper. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so then we meet a guy that we just had on the podcast named Anthony Pappas. And Anthony broke my brain. Yep. I mean, broke my brain, because he is me 3 years into the future, 2 years into the future. He went into land acquisition with the mindset of a developer, not the mindset of a wholesaler. It is a totally different thing.
2 different worlds.
Yeah. And so, because I was introduced in the land as a mindset of a wholesaler, like, oh, I can just flip land and make some, money, make a quick buck. Whereas when you're wholesaling land for commercial or residential development, you're thinking about that land completely different. You really are. You're learning all the zoning and the regulations from the city. You're learning about the fee schedules. You're learning about the phase one and the altas, and just all the stuff that you kind of need to know as a developer. As that I'm sure that's what I'll need to know as a developer. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not there. But so, anyways, nonetheless, that was our pivot. We've pivoted from wholesaling properties to wholesaling land. And so now so I'm excited about that, right? I'm a little uncertain, a little nervous. But the thing that I'm the most nervous about for us, for our business, is the market that we're going to do this in. We've bounced around, just doing market research and starting off here and doing a little bit here and there. But now, Tanner and I are really firm in our decision to move forward with this project and this complete pivot for us. So we want to put a decent amount of time into our market research with where we're going to plant our seed and grow roots for our development, our future development company. So that's the uncertainty right now. So as of now, we don't have a market. We've got a pretty good idea of where we're going to land, but we haven't committed to one as of yet. So it's tough because wholesalers are still other wholesalers that we work with, even ones in our community. I just got an email today. We just got an email for 2 properties that are needing help with dispo, and so we're having to tell people, hey, sorry, we still love you, we're still friends, but we're no longer interested in acquiring properties to help disposition. So that's kind of where we're at. It's tough, it's ugly, but it's necessary, for our future goals. So that's where I'm at. That's my fear. And that's also the thing I'm the most excited about for this upcoming year.
Well, before we wrap this episode up, let me ask you 2 more questions then. What is one thing that you want to be better at this year yourself? Ooh. And then what's another thing or one tip for a wholesaler to, what's one thing you would tell a wholesaler that's new for 2023? Just one tip. What's one thing that comes to mind where it's like, if you could go back from your, first year of starting, since it's the beginning of the year, it's a fresh start, you give one tip of advice.
I've got it.
You would tell someone.
I've got it 100%. So the first thing is the thing that I believe you said, the thing that I want to work on better, time management.
It's a good one.
Time management has been a challenge for me. And it's also something that I know when I can conquer that beast, kind of everything else will fall into place for the most part. For me, this podcast is all about business, but I'm a husband, I'm a father. I've got a 7-year-old son and a 9-year-old daughter, and they're my legacy. They're essentially who I'm doing this for. So, I've got this book right here, Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters. That's something I am really wanting to put a focus on. I don't want to be one of those guys who is an awesome businessman and a half-assed dad. And I don't want to be a half-assed businessman and an awesome dad either. So that's where time management comes in. I really want to make sure that I'm being smart with my time. I'm allocating it, in a manageable way to where things are going to fall through the cracks. It's going to happen, and things are, it's going to get ugly. There's going to be times where the business is shorted. There's going to be times where the family's shorted. So, not, being hard on myself, but just understanding the reality of it. But
Absolutely.
knowing that that's an intention that I want to set for this year is just being better at time management and, you know, giving the right time where it's due. So that's a big thing for me. It's something I'm excited about and also scared about. I'm 42 and I don't have good time management yet. So, and then your second question, the one piece of advice that I would tell a wholesaler. Oh, there's so many things, but here is the number one thing. Because I almost feel like if you get good at doing this one thing, everything else will fall into piece. Kind of like time management, but it's not. It's a part of it. It is. And it's this. This is the number one wish that I have for anyone. I think I've said this in the community a couple times. My wish for you as a brand new wholesaler, whether you're, you know, week one or you've been doing this for a little while, you just haven't had any successes, become resourceful.
Yep.
That's it. Become resourceful. Learn how to find the answers for yourself.
Before
If you can,
them.
yes, yeah. That's the whole point of resourcefulness. You know, I feel like when I say that, a lot of people are okay. So I need to find someone that I can ask questions to, and it's like no. Like Google is a great someone, but just learn to become resourceful. You know, instead of thinking who can I go to with this problem, think how can I figure this problem out? Because if you're a real estate entrepreneur, that the last word in that is entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs are resourceful. If you want to become a solid entrepreneur, a seasoned entrepreneur, you have to learn to become resourceful. Now, you can have the help of other people along the way. Of course, it's necessary, but learn how to figure stuff out on your own. Get good at kind of being in the mud by yourself a little bit and fighting your way out. You know, it's one of the big wishes that I have. I kind of have a visceral, and maybe I need to look into why I have this reaction. But when I see someone constantly asking for something that if they would just realize, if you went through the shit to find it on your own, you'd be so much stronger and better of an entrepreneur, of a real estate investor, if you figured it out on your own. Tanner, there's something you and I were talking about earlier. We were thinking, man, it'd be awesome if we can ask Anthony this. But then we thought, no, we would deprive ourselves of an opportunity to grow by asking him this, you know, and he could, you know, we could also lose a little capital, you know, from him. He could probably look at us like, really, guys, you're going to waste my time asking me this question. You know, I'd much rather you figure this out on your own. So yeah, just learn to be resourceful. That's
the thing is, I think it's important. And what I would tell someone is your first year is for failure. I really don't want, and I'll mention an action too, but piggybacking off of what you just said is the first year is for failure. Don't have the expectation in your first year to be this ultra successful investor. Now, could it happen? Absolutely. Has it happened? Absolutely. As you had mentioned earlier, we do know a wholesaler that hasn't even been wholesaling for a year and already made 6 figures. It's doable, but have that expectation of be ready to fail and be okay with it, because the resourcefulness adds on to that. And what I mean by that is what Isham was also, what I took away from Isham saying is, you know, be that person that at least if you're going to go to someone with a question, have some familiarity of that question and have something to like, hey, Mr. or Mrs., look, I have a question to ask you. I don't know the answer to it, but I've tried looking it up. And so here's what I do know. And I just don't understand the rest of it. Or maybe here's what I have read and here's what I kind of understand. But could you help me clear that up where I could have a better understanding? That right there is being resourceful. But please, what Isham is saying, do not go to someone, especially in this business. If you're trying to go to an A player or someone that's doing a lot of deals, they don't have time to babysit and teach all the time. They really don't. And so just be resourceful, what Isham said. Do whatever you can. Take the extra time. And like I said, that this first year, your first year should be for growth. It should be for failure, and it should be for growth and learning and learning and learning and learning. And then as time goes on, you'll meet those people that you're be able to go ask questions to. But do what Isham's saying. Please be resourceful, because not enough people are. And I don't know how many times, I know you've got a lot of questions. I know a lot of people ask me questions, and it's a question that you could literally Google, and it's like right there on the first page. And so it's like, guys, please be better for yourself. And trust me, it's ultimately going to be better for you because people are going to respect you more. one thing I will have to say to add before we close this out in terms of an action step is every call you make, for the life of me, please be authentic and genuine. I, just like everyone else, when you get into wholesale, you get so scared that people are scared of wholesalers that, whatever, we have a bad rep. We don't. But the reason we have a bad rep is because there's a lot of people that are inauthentic. They lie. So and there's so many people in this business that understand whenever you're coming off as like you're not authentic and you're not genuine. It's so easy to read people. So don't tell people you're a flipper when you're not. Don't tell people you own a portfolio of 100 single family properties when you don't. It comes off that way. So tell people that you are who you are. You're brand new into the industry. And I can promise you one thing. If you're getting into wholesale real estate in 2023 and it's your first year, I can promise you, and please take notes of this every time this happens. The more times you go to someone, whether it's an agent, a seller, an investor, a buyer, a title company, and you are straight up genuine. Hey, I am brand new into real estate. I am taking a leap of faith. I really don't know what I'm doing, but I have studied as much as I can. I have an opportunity. Will you help me with it? I promise you, you are going to get way more results, way faster, because people, it's the human brain. They want to be able to help other people because it makes us as humans feel empowered. It makes us feel like we have something to give to the world. So, but if you act like you come into the business and you act like you know everything, I can promise you, you're going to get shut down and you're going to fail a lot more than you should. So that's my one action step, is just be genuine, be authentic, and be as extremely honest as you possibly can. And sure, some people may not like it, but I can promise you the people that do like it are the people that are going to make you money anyways. So you're going to go ahead and push the people that you don't need in your life away quicker. Ultimately, you're going to be happier, you're going to make more money quicker, and you're going to be more successful in 2023.
Oh, it's so good. What a killer way to end that. Guys, yes, the truth is enough. The truth works. The truth is enough. You may need to be a little creative with the truth at times, but it's still the truth. Yeah, I'll say this really quick because I know there's some people that are like, wait a minute, don't tell them don't tell them you're fixing and flipping. So do I just tell them I'm a wholesaler? You can. John Galan does that, or John Galan, sorry, John, does that a lot, and it works for him. He's got the confidence behind his tonality and everything to say, yes, this is what I do, and I deliver. What I did, I started off kind of doing what I was taught, not necessarily in Astro, but hey, I'm looking for my next flip. And I'll never forget, an agent was like, he hit me up later, and he's like, hey, I looked up your company and I didn't see any flips that you did. And I was like, oh yeah. It's because I use a different LLC when I'm locking up. Oh, okay. What's that LLC? And I was like, oh, I'm not really comfortable telling you. I was like, why not? Why not share that information? I'm trying to vet you. And it just, from that moment on, I was like, what am I doing? Like, why am I lying? This is so dumb. This is so dumb. Like, I'm not out like robbing money from the poor and like feeding the rich. Like, I'm providing a service. Why isn't the truth good enough? So then I started telling people the truth, and miraculously, no one gave a shit. And the people that did care, I didn't want to work with. The people that did care, that were like, oh, all you guys are the same. I'm like, well, it's kind of, you're judging me unfairly, but if you want to go that route, then that's fine. So I learned how to be crafty with the truth. I learned to start telling people, hey, I run a real estate distribution company. And we've got a massive group of vetted buyers. And we typically will only lock something up if we know we have a buyer already lined up for it. So I'm not interested in doing some really long inspection period. I will have someone that's going to come walk it and take a ton of pictures and do a video walkthrough, but I'm not going to have a bunch of other buyers come out there and walk it and act like they're home inspectors or act like they're this and that. I was just truthful with them, and I learned to build a company off truth. And doing it the right way. And so that whenever I did find a buyer, I would say, hey, buyer, here's the portfolio. Here's over 150 photos. Here's the home inspection. Here's a video walkthrough of everything. Try and retrade me at the end. Just try, like I'll cut you. Like, it's not going to happen. So just the truth is enough, guys.
To add to that, to make some people maybe feel a little more comfortable because they still feel a little weary on the, being that truthful, because you're kind of taught in this business, looking up YouTube University, kind of taught differently, is just recently, guys, I don't know how many times, not only from our own experiences, which I've experienced this, but there is so many agents out there that, you know, if you're wholesaling, you're most likely going to work with agents at one point or another. There's so many agents out there that recently have been so thankful when you were honest with them. Oh, you're a wholesaler? Oh, and then they're even willing to work with you. They don't, because they already know now what your goal and your intentions are. So now
true.
they know you're not going to lie to them, you know, because again, most agents can sniff that shit out. Not only because most wholesalers have specific terms we use, and so it's kind of obvious, and then just the way people word stuff. So I wanted to hopefully break down a few walls for someone that maybe still feel uncomfortable after that. Is guys, agents want to work with wholesalers right now. Buyers aren't calling up a lot of deals that are sitting on the market. So if you just be honest with them and run exactly what Isham said, rewind this video 1,000 times and re-listen to it, I promise you they're going to take a deep breath over the phone and they're going to be like, okay, kind of what do we need to do? I know wholesalers personally in this business that agents literally know that all they do is wholesale. And guess what, guys? Agents want to work with them. Agents still send them deals because it minimizes the amount of work that an agent has to do right now. And guess what? The agent still makes money. The agent gets paid. 100%. And so if you're honest, they want to work with you. Please be honest. I'm wrapping it with that because I could keep going on it. So
I know, right? Guys, thank you so much. 2022 was awesome. If we've met, I'm honored to meet you. If we haven't met, let's make that happen in 2023. We want to get you guys on the Wholesale Elite show. Go out and do a couple deals. That's really all. We're not asking for you guys to smash it and make multiple 6 and 7 figures. Do a couple deals, because once you get through 3 or 4 deals, your mindset is different. You've handled some adversity. You've overcome some challenges. We'd love to have you on the show to kind of get your insight and your perspective, because your story is going to help someone else. I promise you. That's the reason why I started off with such a bang, is because I listened to so many stories from other people, and they weren't all always these crazy success stories. It was just people that have been in the game for a little bit. And they were able to share some nuggets. So, if you want to help, if you want to get your voice out, if you want to get your story out, if you're, an empathetic person, or if you just want to get your name out there, love to have you on the show this year. So guys, we just encourage you to keep crushing it. And then if you're not in that seat yet, then keep listening to this podcast. Keep coming back. We do an episode every Monday with an interview. We're going to start doing some little micro content, in the middle of the week. But keep coming back. Keep feeding your mind. Keep staying close to the fire. And then next thing you know, you'll be on the show. So we're honored. Tanner, anything else, man?
No, man. Like I said, I'm pumped for 2023. Let's get it going.
Let's go. Let's go, everyone. All right, guys. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for sticking around. Peace. What up, Elite fan? That's a wrap for today's episode. But look, if you got value out of the show today, do us a huge favor and give us a review, or give us a like, or subscribe. Do all the things to help us get the word out there. And look, we want to see you on the next show. So get out there and crush it, make it happen. Stay tuned for the next episode. Peace.